Right, 8 minutes past the top of the hour. It is shining brightly. Juu imetokea vizuri. That means it's going to be a heated day. And something else that is going to be heated is our conversation for you this morning. And we are asking you, gentlemen, karibia TV, ongeza volume kidogo, because we're asking you, what will you do if you discovered you're raising a child who isn't biologically yours? Ungefanya nini ukipata huyo mtoto mwenye una raise, umekuwa ukiraise for a number of years, si wako? And people have started already talking to us on our Facebook pages at TV47KE, on X at TV47 News, Manyaringita _22047 ndio SMS namba yetu. Unaweza tuongelesha, utuambie, nitakuwa naangalia baadaye. 0793267279 is our WhatsApp number. Ukishikwa sana unaweza amua wacha nipigie wa majamaa. 0795-045-864 is the number to call us live. Usiogope, tuambie jina, where you calling us from, alafu tafadhali zima TV yako ndio tupatane vizuri ama namna gani. So imagine umekuwa ukiishi na mtu for like 5 years, mpo wako hapo wanaume, alafu siku moja tu muende hospitali upate mtoto umekuwa ukiraise for 5 years or so, si wako. Utafanya nini? The wakile I have today, Paul Mashari, is an advocate of the High Court. He's been smiling since tuanze. Sijui ni kama najua umepata his experience, not personally, but umesikia hapa nje na clients. And I'm very very curious wanasema nini hata tukianza, because najua hizi kitu watu wanasema zita form what you're going to be talking about. Kirui Nicholas anasema the problem is not the child, the problem is her mother. And if I was not told from the start, it means I won't trust that woman in my life. She has to live with the baby. And if I was told, it means I had committed myself to be responsible. I have to commit myself. Only a dangerous wife is the one who doesn't speak her mind well. Let her go. Hiyo ni baadhi ya kitu watu wanasema. Tuko tunaangalizi zote wakili, yes, tukiendelea. But from the eyes of the law, kuna shida kweli mwanamke asipoambia mtu huyu mtoto ni wako?
So first, allow me to greet you.
Yes, most definitely. Habari leo.
Yes, and also to greet the viewers, yes, and the listeners, and to pass my condolences to the families of the deceased children in the recent inferno.
Yes.
So this is a very emotive topic. It's a topic that really touches on the core of the human existence. Because by way of an introduction, we would like to ask ourselves, what is in a name? I mean, why would someone say that the child's father is Stanley and not anyone else? Why would, because factually speaking, every child has a father. And every child has a mother. That is the bottom line. Then why would someone lie about the identity of a child in the preparation of the documentation? And of course, there is the legal framework that has been laid, one by the statutes and by the Constitution. So when you're talking about a name, first, the Constitution and Children's Act mandates that the child has a right to nationality and name. That's the bottom line. And then to whom or who is bestowed with the responsibility of giving the child the name is the child's parents. Okay. Which is the mother and the father.
Right.
Now, the framework on the context of what we will be discussing, this is where there is no marriage per se by or after the child was born. Because in the normal setup of a marriage, then there would be no problem relating to the name. But when there is some informality in terms of the marriage, then the issue of the name may arise. So, before we dive deeper in our discussion, the Constitution grants the parties, first, as a right to the child, the child has a right to name and nationality. That is one. Two, the parents have a duty to give a child a name. And when I'm talking about the parents, these are the biological parents or the adoptive parents. These are the parents who have consciously and voluntarily agreed to take up the responsibility of this child.
I love where you're going with that, because now I'm also heading there.
Yes.
Yeah,
now, previously, they had some discussions, and these will be very important in what we are discussing.
Yes.
There was the section of the law when, in terms of the registration of persons, it required that when the parents are not married to each other and a child has been born out of a wedlock, the law, prior to the decision of Lady Justice Mumbi Ngugi, was that you needed to seek the consent of the father before you would give the child the name. Of course, the name that identify the child with the father. But then, this judgment or this decision of the judge made or pronounced the unconstitutionality of a requirement to ask for a permission of a biological father, whether in marriage or not, to have their name included in a name of a child. Now, it is not, you don't have to consent, whether you are staying with the mother, child's mother or not, for the child to adopt your name. Okay?
Right. So as you rightfully put it, because just taking a look at even Section 24, first of all, Cap 1 of the Children's Act, presuming that the father has to have taken up parental responsibilities at the moment that the child is born. So he's therefore is bound to bear the parental responsibility towards the child as he will have as a biological father as well. And this is where you come in, viewer. 0795 045 864 tupigie simu, because venye tu ameanza even just getting the background of this conversation, akituambia jina ni muhimu sana na si lazima sahi even for the mother ombe ruhusa. So
yes,
when how different is what the Children's Act even tells us, Storia, assuming the parental responsibility. Tuweke assumption yetu hapa, tuko na let me use, let's say Peter na Mary. Peter and Mary have stayed together for 5 years. Our Peter and Mary sio tu wana exist, this in example tu wamekaa for 5 years na kuna mtoto for example anaitwa Priscilla. So one day Peter anakuja napata Priscilla is not my biological child. Yes, as you rightfully say, alimpatia jina. Akakaa chini wakasema wacha tumuite Priscilla. So now what happens at this time? What can Peter do, legally speaking?
Okay. One, there is the difference between the parental responsibility as a result of giving birth to that child, and there is the parental responsibility because you have made a conscious decision to take up the responsibility of that child, which is not your child. And at the point of you agreeing to take up the responsibility, you should be aware, or you are aware, that this is not my child, and I'm taking up the responsibility.
Okay.
Now, what happens if it is proved that you are not the child's biological parent? By law, you are not obligated to have parental responsibility unless you voluntarily agreed to take up responsibility over that child. So what will happen is
when because here there are two things that are there.
Yes.
Just going back to what the comment that we saw on Facebook, Kirui Nicholas alikuwa amesema, just a quote of that: if I was told, it means I had committed, but if I was not told, that's a
precisely that's why I'm saying parental responsibility. One, to a father, the biological father, they have no option.
Okay.
Whether they like it or not, the law grants them responsibility over their children. whether they are married to their mother or not.
As long as you're the
As long as you are the biological father.
Okay.
The law gives you or gives the child a right to demand from you responsibility, and which will, the parental responsibility does not only talk about the name, it talk about protection, it talk about provision, it talk about security, it talk about parental guidance. Now, the responsibility cannot legally yours if you are not aware, or if there was misrepresentation.
Okay.
To misguide you as to the proper position. Because we said, if you are not the father, it only means that there is a father who is by law responsible for that child.
Can the woman come to court? For example, Peter, Mary, as well as Priscilla, who's a daughter.
Yes.
Can Mary come to court 5 years after amejua and tell the court that, no, mi niliambia Peter, mtoto akizaliwa nilimwambia mtoto bedhe ujue si wako, na Peter akasema okay sawa. There might not be evidence on that ile because alimwambia tu word of mouth, but Peter aruke story aseme no, I was not told. Mary on the other hand tells the court that I told him. How will that play?
You see now, that will be a contest of two parties.
Okay.
And the evidence that, or the manner in which cases are determined, whichever party wants the court to believe their position, they have to bring evidence in support of their case.
Okay.
If Mary is saying that Peter indeed agreed, and Peter is saying, I did not agree, now it's upon Mary to demonstrate to the court that indeed Peter agreed, and this is how he agreed.
Mm-hmm.
It should not be let out without evidence. There should be proper evidence that he agreed. How do you normally agree? For example, that he agreed by writing or by way of evidence. There may be some evidence you need to adduce.
Okay.
And if he agreed, and now he is not agreeing, there is no law to force him taking up responsibility for a child that is not his. So, parental responsibility. And you see, the confusion would be in assuming that this child doesn't have a father. Mm-hmm. Every child has a father. Whether it's the father that they are staying with the mother or a father that is not staying with the mother. Mm-hmm. So, and the father, the child's father, whether in or out of the home setup, has a responsibility.
Okay.
Any other person, not the biological parent, they have to consciously agree to take up the responsibility, that which by law is bestowed on another individual.
So this means the court will have to ask Mary, in our case, for example, iulize Mary, wapi baba ya mtoto? Because
precisely because the child
Peter is not the father.
Child has a father. And if Peter demonstrates that indeed I am not the father, and there is the DNA result, mm-hmm, showing indeed this is not my child,
okay,
the court cannot force him even a cent unless he had agreed to take care of that child.
Hapo kwa DNA ndio nataka tubaki kidogo tu, because right now you'd find comparing to years kitambo, DNA ingekuwa quite expensive. So here at least ni itakuwa about 10K plus there, but then let's call it affordable. And if you really want to, you can go and get it.
Yes.
So in this case, does the court order that and then mchukue DNA? Are there two sets of DNA that, from my evidence side, as let's say Peter atakuja sema, no, this is my DNA, court iseme hapana, wacha mkuwe na our own, set of DNA as well. How does that work?
What happens? First, this mostly arises in custody and maintenance disputes, where any of the parents may go to court seeking custody and maintenance from the other party. And then this party that is being compelled to support the child says, I cannot even support a child that is not mine. Hmm. So what do? They can by themselves ask the court to allow a DNA test to be done. That is one instance. Or even without going to court, they can decide to do DNA by themselves. Now, when it is done as a result of the order of the court, the results are sent to the court.
Okay.
And then the court, in the next date of the court, it will read out the results to the parties. So you will be told, you the plaintiff and you the defendant, come to court at this time because we want to read the results. And then the parties will be asked, are you comfortable with the results? If not, another test will be done. If still they not be satisfied, another test will be done. Now, assuming the first instance, the result says you are the father. You say, I cannot be the father. Another test will be done. It shows you are not the father. You see, we have two conflicting tests. Then the third one will be done, which will be the determinant. So it will be confirmed whether you are the father or not.
Okay.
Once it is confirmed you are the father, then the other discussion about the maintenance, the support will kick in. If not, the discussion dies there.
Okay.
The court cannot go further to give you responsibility over children that are not yours.
So, for example, now in our case again, the DNA test may confirm Peter is not the biological father of Priscilla, who is the daughter. And for 5 years, Peter has put in, because mtoto wa 5 years, huyo ashaingia shule hata. So that means he's paid school fees, food and all that, childcare, yoyote. Can Peter tell the court, hii pesa yote nimeweka, by the way, hapana, ninafaa nirudishiwe? Can that happen?
Yes, it can happen. Why? Because those are the damages that you have incurred as a result of a fraud misrepresentation.
Okay.
One, before even going there, once it is confirmed that you are not the father, at your option, you can say, I even want my name to be struck off from their birth certificate.
Right.
I want all the documents indicating me as the father to be that name to be revoked. And the courts have done that before, where the guy identifies or realizes that yet I'm not the father, though my identity was used to give identity to this child. They can move the court and the court will grant it because your name cannot be used without your permission. And still we go back to where we started. What is in a name? You know, the name is everything. Without the name, one, you cannot be able to identify someone. You cannot be able to relate them. You cannot be able to place them in their proper standing. So the name has everything. It gives you identity. It gives you nationality. It gives you the inherent nature to be treated as one.
So example yetu hapa, Priscilla atabaki na jina gani ingine? If Peter decided, let's say alikuwa anaitwa Peter Waweru, for example.
Yes.
And the name Waweru also appears on the child's name. And after the ruling apate, I am not the biological father, I'm the adoptive, and he...
The name Waweru will be removed. And so, as I said, every child has a father. So at the option of the mother, she can decide, let me take the child's real father name. Or let the child remain without the surname. You get? Because it's not that if the father is not there, the child will remain fatherless.
Right.
That is not what we're talking about. This is where a child was born by an individual. Then later, that individual's identity was not captured in the name's identity, in the child's identity. And somebody else's identity was captured. Now, this person has realized that their identity was used to identify someone who does not belong to them.
Okay. So, Wakili, what special circumstances will lead to the court telling the adoptive father that, yes, we understand that you're not the father, but you will have to continue with the responsibilities of all this. And this takes me back to June 2022, when the High Court ordered a man to continue raising 2 minors that his former wife had from a different relationship. The court had found out that he had assumed the parental responsibility and even given the last born his own name. So under some of these circumstances and some of these occasions, so under what circumstances will now the court say, apa itabidi, you continue?
Now, when it is issue child, the court is guided by one of a key principle, what we call the best interest of a child. When it's about the child. And when you're talking about the child, these are the welfare of a child. When the court is making a decision about the welfare of a child, one of the key consideration is the best interest of the child.
Okay.
The law has defined what the best interest of a child is. And this is not only in Kenya. In Africa, we have the African Union Charter, we have the law on the child, international conventions on the law of a child, that defines the best interest of a child. And it guides in every body, every organization, every institution that is dealing with the matter child. The focus should be the best interest of the child. Okay? Now, when the dispute, and of course we have to be able to identify the dispute between the parties, the parent, the father and the mother, and the dispute for and about the children. So the court focuses on the decision that is to be made. Is it for or against the interest of the children?
Okay.
Now, you would say that you are not the father. But, which maybe it was not by a misrepresentation, that of course you knew maybe you are not the father. And that notwithstanding, there are some acts you did to indeed confirm that you are the father. If that you did, then it means that the court can find in favor of the children's interest that it is in their interest, one, you continue taking care of their basic needs. Two, you continue protecting them. And you continue, of course, offering security and guidance up and until they are of the age of the majority.
Okay.
And even then, even if they get to the age of the majority, if need be, the court at times extends the responsibility of parents beyond the 18th birthday. The focus and the consideration is, what is the best interest of these children? Will the decision be that the court will make be for or against their interest?
So on that line of thought as well,
Yes.
Kama Peter hapa na Mary waamue ama Peter, because of what has happened so far, let's say they were in the midst of divorce proceedings. Maybe at that time Peter hakuwa amejua that huyu mtoto si wangu. Now washaanza divorce proceedings, and then midway he comes to discover, by the way, this is not my child. Does that change how the divorce proceedings in the court will continue?
The divorce proceedings are distinct from the children discussion and children's case. They are distinct from the matrimonial property discussion. They are distinct from protection against domestic violence discussion. And they are also distinct from any dispute that may be brought by the parties with relation to the items they got together.
Okay.
The Marriage Act has given or stipulates the grounds upon which one may seek for divorce. The grounds are there. Now, if you had taken parental responsibility of these children are yours, whether you are married or not, because Article 53 of the Constitution provides that the responsibility of the parents, whether married or not, should be shared equally between themselves. So even when they divorce, the issue of the responsibility cannot be divorced. You cannot say, because I have divorced the child's mother, I am now then divorced from taking care of those children whom the responsibility by law bestows to you.
But on matters custody, how
that is where then the discussion changes.
Yeah.
Because initially, when you were living together, both of you had the custody of the children. Now, when you are living apart, the court still in deciding, because the court has to make a decision between the two, who is to be given custody and who is to be given access, who is to provide for maintenance, and how much is to be provided. When should access happen, and where should access be? Now, in making the decision, the court will look at what we said, the best interest of children. If, for example, you stay in Nairobi and the mother stays in Mombasa, you cannot be told that you meet midway every time you want to access the children, for either of the party to access the children. The court will have to strike a balance that does not prejudice the interest of these children. These children may also be school-going children. You cannot be told, because you are the father, you should take the children out of school so that you can access them.
All right.
As well, the court cannot tell you that you will not provide for maintenance because you are not the one who is staying with them. You have a responsibility to support, to provide, and to take care of your children, whether you are with their mother or not. So as to whether you are divorced or not, it is not really a core issue in determining who has the responsibility over the children. That will come in play when you are discussing as to who should have the access and who should have the custody.
Okay.
And the person who is having the access, what type of access should they have? Because at times you understand, divorce proceedings may be very acrimonious.
Yes. Where
the parties are very combative at each other. So that even when they are handing over children, it is like a battle. And you cannot trust the other party to go and have the children alone without your supervision. Then, depending on the circumstances, because as well I said, whoever desires the court to make a decision in support of their position, they have to provide evidence. If this guy or this woman has been very violent, or the guy is a drunkard, or the wife is a drunkard, she's never home, she doesn't take care of children, or the children have suffered injuries in the hands of either of the parties, those are the considerations the court will look. If, for example, you caused injuries to your children while you had access, the court will not grant you unlimited access. It will be limited or supervised access.
Right.
Until when these children have formed a bond with you. As well, the children themselves, they have their opinion, and the court considers their opinion. What is the opinion? What is the wishes of the children? That's another consideration. Besides the best interest, the child will also be asked, "Wewe toto, unataka kukaa na mama ama na dad?" Nataka kukaa na mama. The court cannot override that unless it is still in their best interest.
Right. All right. Let's continue taking a look at what you're saying, because that would definitely form even what Wakili is telling us. So on Facebook, I taken a look at Kirui Nicholas. Daphne Asema, yeah, I can. Our question of the day for you is, gentlemen, what would you do if you discovered you're raising a child who isn't biologically yours? Daphne Asema, yeah, I can. If you love the mother, so love also the kid. Kama unapenda kuku, penda pia kifaranga au mayai yake. Colin Sanyima anasema, I'd better take care of the child, even if he or she is not biologically mine, and leave the mother alone for not speaking the truth. Daudi, you just divorced the woman there by there. Mitama Kevin, if I married the mom with the kid, well, I'll continue raising the kid. But if we're married and she signs from outside, I'll do away with mom and the kid. Keep them coming. Kuna zingine nyingi zinaendelea kuingia on WhatsApp 0793267279. You can also call us live. Tungependa sana kusikia sauti yako. Tuambie jina, where you calling us from, and zima audio ya TV ama gadget yako 0795045864. Namba ziko hapo hivyo chini kwa screen yako. From what I'm seeing here, kuna mixed reactions. Kuna wale watasema hapana. Most are leaning towards the side that, fine, I mean, I've taken care of this child. I'll maybe continue, but then for the mother, tumeachana hivyo na hivyo. And this now raises other conversations about, because for a certain period of time, in an example, for example, mtu amekaa na mtoto for 5 years. In this 5 years, this father had even started thinking about vitu kama inheritance, vitu kama, hizi public benefits, let's say NHIF, you know, ashamtaftia, insurance here, you know, some of these things. Will this father, is he allowed to strike this, or, you know, all this out? To come inheritance tayari alikuwa shaenda, can he strike this child off aseme no, this is not my child, hakuna inheritance unachukua?
So there are two scenarios and there are two instances. One, you are aware that you are not the child's mother or the child's father, from the inception of the relationship with the mother. So by then, the child acquired the rights to inherit you and to be provided by you as their parents. Okay? Now, if that was the case, then you don't have much option at a later date of disregarding the needs of this child, because you took it up voluntarily and knowingly. This is second scenario. This is why you've taken care of a child and then later you realize it is not my child. You have two options. One, you can decide to disengage, or you continue taking care of the child. Of course, by the time you are realizing you are not the child's father, the alternative position is there is a child's father somewhere. And this child's father may also want to be involved. And mark you, by the time you are realizing and that you are not the child's father, between you and the biological father, the biological father has more right than you, unless you had acquired the rights through the legal process. So in the event the child's father comes saying, I want my child, you don't have much leverage to fight over a child that is not yours. Because the law, we said, it bestows the parental responsibility over the parents. Now, at the point of realizing, you can either, at your option, decide to have nothing with this child. At the point of realizing, this includes and means and includes, you may decide to have your identity struck off from the record of that child. You may also decide not to take up the further responsibility. And you may decide to take an action against the mother for misleading or for fraudulently obtaining documentation that identifies you as the father. And the Constitution, Article 35, provides that every person has a right to the information corrected and deletion of any misleading information. What does that mean? It means you, as a person who has realized that indeed there was a mistake that was done, at your option, you can decide to have that correction made or that misleading information deleted. It's your constitutional right to have correct information regarding yourself presented in the proper manner. So if you feel that there is some information that you are not comfortable being contained by somebody else, you can move the court. And that information, if it's your name, if it's your identity, it can be removed or corrected.
Right. So now what happens to the mother? Again, ile setup yetu, they're all in court, Peter as well as Mary, the adoptive father, and now the biological mom. The child maybe ako hapo to around. Now what happens after now this whole ruling? Is there a penalty that is given to the mom, a sentencing, for example? What happens to her?
Now, fraud is a criminal offense. And this is one of the cons. If, for example, it was found that, or it is realized that you fraudulently did X, Y, Z, the police will do the investigation. A criminal file will be opened. And you, the complainant, may be one of the witnesses to testify as against the fraud that was done, which is a criminal offense punishable by law. Then the question would be, will you report?
Okay.
You see, fraud is punishable, whether done by your child your mother, your father, your wife, your relative, it is punishable. It's a criminal offense. And it is only punishable if you decide to go and complain and give evidence in court.
Well, so if it cropped up in court, Peter had not even reported it. Wao walikuwa hapo stories za mtoto ni wangu, mtoto si wangu. They found out mtoto si wake. So even as the court continues to peruse the evidence, they find out fraud was also part of this, and Peter had not reported it. Will the court let it slide and now Peter arudi tena file ama what?
Now in courts, people file pleading and papers and affidavits.
Okay.
If it is found that you indeed lied in one of the affidavits, then the court can also, it's because it's an offense of perjury. You lie under oath. That is also a criminal offense that is punishable by the court and by the person who, a criminal offense, the punishment for a criminal offense, there will be an investigation done, the confirmation of the authenticity of the evidence and the record. Once an investigation file has been opened and it is confirmed indeed you lied under oath or misrepresented under oath, you are punishable. It's a criminal offense that is punishable.
Okay.
So, but normally how our courts operate, the courts do not go out to dig for the truth. We call our system is an adversarial system where it's a contest like. You bring this, I bring this. You bring 1 ton of amount of evidence, I bring 1 jug of evidence, and then the court weighs. And when you're talking about evidence in court, the court does not weigh the weight of the evidence. It's not about how much evidence have you brought. It is the probative value of the evidence you have brought.
And speak of which, so can now Peter, again in our scenario here, file a seme, for these 5 years, the fact that sasa nimejua mtoto si wangu, hii imeniletea psychological trauma, imeniletea some emotional burden. What can Peter do on that as well? Because as you say, the kind of value on this, how much of him filing for psychological trauma, emotional distress can add on to his case?
Of course, one of the clear consequence of having used somebody's identity without their permission is one, they are liable to the payment of damages. Because one, you misrepresented that fact. That is what we call their civil remedies. Civil remedies include that one can file for them to get damages. And the damages, there are 2 types. We have general damages, which is the court decides how much are we going to give you.
Okay.
And the specific damages, these are the damages you suffered that you can't quantify. That as a result of you misleading me, I paid 10 million in support of this position. As a result of you misleading me, I am now so embarrassed, I am tortured, I have psychological pain and torture. And then that is the damage that the court will quantify. It's not really quantified, but the court will give a amount for that. The other direct consequence of misleading is there are some criminal sanctions that one can get. You can go, and then once it is confirmed that indeed you committed fraud, then a criminal sanction will be put. 3, you can also have, as a result of the fraud, you can be excused from further taking up the parental responsibility over that child. And 4, you can be allowed to have your identity deleted from that, from the identity of the child.
Right.
So those are just some of the remedies that one can have.
And I think that goes to what Alex from Thogoto on WhatsApp 0793-267-279 is asking. Hi TV47, great conversation there. Kindly ask Wakili, can the mother be jailed?
So the answer is not yes or no. The answer is any person can be jailed once a criminal case has been instituted, evidence has been tendered, people have given evidence, and she is found guilty of a criminal offense, she can't be jailed.
For how long? Well, maybe.
It depends with the magnitude of the forgery, because if you forge, for example, a will, a birth certificate, now forgery is one of the offenses we call misdemeanors. These are not very severe offenses. But there are others, what we call the capital offenses, where the punishment is either life imprisonment or death or that kind. But forgery is a misdemeanor, where the court has the discretion. You can be jailed maybe 6 months, 1 year, or you be given a fine. Those are some of the considerations the court will look. And of course, now, when you are convicted, it is said that indeed you have committed an offense. The court gives you a chance to mitigate. Malilio, it's known as malilio. Once you give your mitigation, the court will then decide whether it is convinced or not. Then it will determine, one, the duration by which you should be jailed, or the amount of fine you should pay.
Right. So for clarity, because earlier on you told us that birth certificates, both parents will be there to give this child a name. But then when they were starting out, when this child was born, the father did not know that, or rather he knew that, the child is his. Kumbe, the mom knows, differently. So when you talk about now fraud, then that would mean that, because now it seems that the father is also in this fraud when this birth certificate is being made. So clarify for us that is it sasa now on misrepresentation ama itakuwaje?
Now when the child is born, like there is a case that was determined in Kisumu not very long time ago, where the child father, or the father, was allowed to have his identity removed from the child's birth certificate.
Okay.
This was the context. By the time the child was born, the father and the mother had a relationship. So, as at the time of birth, the father assumed or knew that this is my child, only for him to realize later this is indeed not my child. So at which point he moved the court to have his name removed from the child's birth certificate, which the court granted. As to whether he would wish to have the damages paid back, it is as his option. And as we said, if you want the court to pay you back 10 million, you bring evidence of having spent that much amount of money. If, for example, you want the court to make an order maybe stopping further usage of that identity, then you ask the court to give you. So it is possible that once the court has made a finding that indeed there was no knowledge, or the information was obtained without your proper guidance. For example, if I want you to sign a document and I mislead you to understanding a different position, while the correct position is different from what I made you understand.
Tuchukue simu kabla ikatike. Joyce kutoka Nairobi, habari asubuhi. Hello Joyce kutoka Nairobi, unanipata?
Nakusikia.
Asante sana kwa kutupigia. Naomba upaze sauti yako kidogo. Uko na swali au maoni?
Niko na swali.
Yes, uliza.
Okay, nimefungua tu sasa hivi nimeona mkiendelea mjadala.
Yes.
But kuna swali nataka kuuliza wakili. Mimi kwa sasa niko na watoto watatu na wote wako shuleni.
Okay.
Kuna mtoto wa mwisho papa yake anamsema, anamsuka, anasema si wake. But mimi nasema ni wake na kila kitu nilisaa nikiwa hapo kwangu. Huyu watatu, huyu mzee ameniweka kanda, ni wake ndio tuko kwa hiyo koma, but huyo mzee anapagua huyo mtoto. But mnaongea vizungu nyingi na si wote wasomi, na sika moja tu, but ninaelewa vitu vingine. Vizungu nyingi kuna ingine sipati vizuri, ndio maana nataka kuuliza hili swali. Ndio watoto wako shuleni wote. Huyu mdogo ako form 1, but babaka amefika mahali anampagua na hata aendi shule, analipia wengine school fee, wengine anawacha. Sasa nifanyaje na huyu mtoto?
Sawa. Asante sana Joyce kwa hiyo swali. Wakili amesikia hiyo malalamishi, atapunguza kizungu, aweke Kiswahili sana. Usiende mbali, ndio kama uko na swali nyingine wakili atakuwa anaendelea. Wakili?
Naam, asante Joyce. Jambo la msingi kila mzazi anafaa elewe, mtoto ako na haki ya kulindwa na kutunzwa na wazazi wote. Japo mzazi mmoja anamtelekeza mtoto, mzazi mwingine ako na haki ya kwenda mahakamani, aombe mahakama imuamuru huyu mzazi ambaye amekataa kuwajibika kuchukua wajibu wake wa kutunza watoto wake. Sababu huyo jamaa anasema ya kwamba huyu mtoto mdogo si wake. Ningetaka Wakenya na watazamaji wafahamu, hata ndani ya ndoa watu wanapata watoto nje ya ndoa. Haimaanishi ukiwa ndani ya ndoa huwezi kuwa na macho ya nje na ukapata mtoto nje ya ndoa. Japo unatashwishi ama japo atakapoelekea mahakamani na idhibitisho ya kwamba ni ukweli huyu mtoto si wa huyu jamaa, mahakama haitamwamuru mtu kuchukua majukumu ambayo yeye si mzazi wa yule mtoto. Pindi tu ama iwepo ama palikuwepo na makubaliano kati yake na mzazi ya kwamba huyu mtoto si wangu, lakini kando na hayo nitamtuza. Iwapo hapakuwa na pale yale makubaliano, kwa hivyo kile kitu ambacho mtu anafaa kufanya, mzazi wa mtoto lazima awajibike. Asipowajibika unafanya nini? Unakimbia mahakamani. Mahakama itamshurutisha kuwajibika. Japo atasema huyu mtoto si wangu, kusema haitoshi, mtafanya DNA. Ikithibitishwa mtoto ni wake, mahakama itamshurutisha, na pindi atakapokiuka yale yale maelekezo ya mahakama, anaweza shikwa, mali yake inaweza uzwa ili wale watoto wasome. Japo itapatikana yeye si baba ya wale watoto, swali ambalo mahakama itajiuliza, ilikuwa lini ukajua wewe si baba? Na katika kufanya uamuzi ambao utafanyika, ni kwa sababu ya kusaidia mtoto ama ni kwa sababu ya kusaidia nani? Yawezekana huyu jamaa alijua huyu mtoto si wake, lakini kando na hayo akaendelea kuchukua majukumu ya mzazi. Haiwezekani mtoto anapokuwa mkubwa unataka kuchukua njia nyingine ya mkato, njia mbadala, usimsaidie ule mtoto. Mahakama itafanya uamuzi wa kwanza. Ikithibitisha wewe ni baba, uko na majukumu na uko na haki ya kumchunga ule mtoto. Ikithibitisha si wewe si baba, ni mambo yapi uliyokuwa umeyafanya kuonyesha kwamba ulikuwa umechukua majukumu ya kumkimu huyu mtoto. Japo hapana kati ya yale ambayo tumetaja, mahakama haitakushurutisha kumlinda na kumtuza mtoto ambaye wewe si mzazi wake.
Sawa Joyce, natumai umepata majibu hayo vizuri. Kama unaona bado wakili hajajibu venye ulikuwa unataka, unaweza tupigia tena, and that goes to each one of you. 0795045864 ndio namba ya kutupigia simu. Kabla tuondoke, naona tuko na about 1 minute actually ya kuondoka, kabla pia nikuuliza utupatie last thoughts. But then even for the last thoughts, koti mahakama ikipeana uamuzi huu, line yenye ina draw kati ya morality yenye tuko nayo na law yenye iko, what happens hapo katikati?
The courts does not really, or it's a bit difficult for the court to prefect morality. To tell you the extent, because how a child can be born in a marriage out of a wedlock, it's a result of a dishonest spouse who went out of the way to teach, to cheat, to become adulterous, or to have a relationship out of the marriage without the knowledge of the other person. Of course, that is lying. That is cheating on each other. What the court, the court cannot be looking at all people so that they will not cheat. What there is, they are the way the court addresses the aftermath of cheating. If you cheat on your spouse and they decide to divorce you, the court will then grant the divorce. If you cheat on your spouse and you get a child out of a wedlock, then the other party has an option of enforcing you to take care of that child. So indeed, the reason why there are laws, it's because people inherently may wish to break them. And if they break them, then there needs to be a way of dealing with people who break the law.
Okay.
That by essence may serve as a deterrence to those who wish to break the law.
Right.
Because you'll know, if I lie on the identity of a child and it is found out, one, this child will not inherit that individual. This individual will not take care of that child. And then I will be embarrassed as somebody who lied. Then that would mean that indeed if the people find themselves in those circumstances, they go because this child has a father, let the child be provided for by the father.
Right.
If the father is not the person you are staying with, if the person you are staying with has an issue with heart, let him know or let her know that indeed there is a child and I'm obligated to take care of that child, so that at no point then they will start running away from their responsibility.
Right. In about 30 seconds you're clear and call. In case mtu hajapata hii maneno yote vizuri, unaweza tumia lugha ya Kiswahili kwa wale hawajanyita vizuri tumekuwa ukizungumzia. What will you tell them?
Kile kitu ambacho ningetaka kuwaeleza watazamaji, ni muhimu na ni jambo la busara kuhakikisha kwamba makubaliano yameandikwa chini. Ama makubaliano, kuna ushahidi wa makubaliano. Ya pili, ni muhimu mtu kukuwa mkweli, kwa sababu usipokuwa mkweli kuna yale madhara ya kutokuwa mkweli. La tatu, japo utajipata katika tatizo kwa sababu ya kwanza haukujulishwa mwanzo, sheria ipo. Usikufe kwa mawazo, usiwatendee unyama watoto. Watoto hawana hatia. Japo hauna moyo wa kuwatunza, ni muhimu mzazi wake awajibike na awatunze. Kando na hayo, hakuna tatizo ambalo halina suluhu.
Asante sana. Paul Macharia, advocate of the High Court. Wakili, for all these particular conversations. Final comment here from Sambonanga anasema, if I raised up children who are not biologically mine, let's say from 4 to 5 years up to university, and the mother decides to divorce them, what is my right as a man? I know you've rightfully put all this, but then your social media handles ama social number yenye mtu anaweza kupata for all these questions that are coming in.
Yes, you can find us on our website. Our website is Macharia Gaitho and Murigo Advocates. You'll see us there. You'll get our contact. But my personal contact is 0704 259 382. When you call me or you text, you'll find me. But there, in terms of if you want to have an appointment, you can do that online. You can book an appointment. You can see our profile and our details online. Macharia Gaitho and Murigo Advocates, LLP.
So thank you very much, Paul Macharia. I hope we may learn vitu nyingi sana, gentlemen. Our conversation continues on our digital platforms. What will you do if you discover that the child you're raising is not yours biologically? Endelea kutuambia. Now, from this particular conversation from matters koti, nataka niwapeleke kwa barabara because najua nyinyi ni road users. Either mnatuwatch mkiwa kwa barabara ama uko kwa nyumba unaelekea kwa barabara. And according to the National Transport and NTSA rather, data nasema from 1st January all the way to 27th August this year, 3,674 people have been seriously injured. Meanwhile, 7,114 have been involved in road accidents. That is quite the number comparing to last year. So we're asking you, what do you think is the main cause of road accidents in